this work of an architect is the search for yourself. And when you say yourself, it is not you, but it's humanity, our own deeper consciousness as people.
You're about to enter the Archgyan podcast.
Archgyan podcast.
India's first and very own architecture podcast, where you'll hear the insights, experiences, and journeys from India's leading architects. No matter what your skill level is, together we'll build on our knowledge and share architecture's greatest stories ever told. Now, here's your host, Manish Paul Simon.
Hey guys, welcome back to yet another episode of the Archgyan podcast. Today I'm super stoked to be sharing with you guys the journey of Bijoy Ramachandran. He's the principal architect and founder of Hundredhands, an award-winning architecture studio based in Bangalore, who have been internationally recognized for their various projects spanning from institutions, apartments, hotels, museums, and even various competitions that they've gone on to win. In this episode, Bijoy not only takes us on his journey in architecture, right from studying in BMS College of Architecture to going and studying in MIT in the 1990s, and then coming back establishing Hundredhands, but also about what exactly is architecture and how architecture, when explored to its deepest depths, can really move and influence all our lives. I hope you guys learn a ton from this episode and also inspires you to create architecture which really leaves a mark on humanity and society. Now, before I head to the episode, please do check out the show notes by going to archgyan.com/27. We write down the podcast show notes and also relevant links which you may find useful from what you listen to the episode. Now, without further ado, this is Architecture and the Senses with Bijoy Ramachandran.
Oh, you mean even before getting into architecture school?
Before, yeah.
No, it wasn't one of those stories where, from the age of 5 or something so architecture was something that I really sort of stumbled upon thanks to a teacher of mine.
Okay.
So in the 12th standard, usually there was, a kind of orientation program that my warden used to conduct.
Okay.
And so at that orientation, he told me that, why don't you try architecture?
Okay.
And so completely on his advice, I started applying and finally made it into college in Bangalore.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you studied in BMS, right?
In BMS, yes.
So how was the college time? How was your college
It was
days?
fantastic.
Okay.
It was fantastic. I think there was something about that time at BMS. I used the word that Brian Eno uses, this idea of seniors.
Right.
That it isn't really about your tutors or, the library or anything. It's just a group of people that somehow serendipitously come together and then influence each other and make things, work, as a group.
Okay.
And so we had fantastic colleagues. I had amazing classmates. I had seniors and juniors, all of us working together, and most of us working on NASA as the main sort of focus of everything. So it was a fantastic time at BMS.
Right. And then you went on to do MIT master's.
I worked for a year. Right after I graduated, I applied to a few firms in Ahmedabad and worked at Doshi's office with his son-in-law Rajiv Katpalia.
Okay.
I worked for a year there, close to a year, and then went abroad for my master's.
So you didn't get to work with Doshi, sir?
No, not much. I was working on some L&T housing with Rajiv. We were upstairs in a separate office.
Okay.
Computers were just about making their way into the office at that time.
Okay.
And we used something called MiniCAD, the precursor of Vectorworks.
Okay.
And I remember watching printing. In those days there were these printers which had pens in them. And they were kind of line matrix printers, and they would do these incredible sort of random printing, tricks, and we would all stand around the printer watching it come out. Yeah, it was fantastic.
Okay. And you were also involved in a lot of drafting and...
Yeah. So the bulk of the work was done by hand even in those days. The office actually taught us a lot about this kind of an iterative process, by which you make architecture. And so both Rajiv's small studio within Sangath as well as the big studio which was engaged with the diamond boards, The work was all carried out through elaborate drawings, but also a very, very sort of elaborate set of models at various scales. And so the study of what you were doing was paramount, that you're really looking at things carefully before you're showing it out to sight. So that somehow has stayed with us.
Okay, great. And then you went on to do masters in MIT, right? So
That's right.
Tell us about your time there and how you applied and got it and stuff.
I applied only to one college, and in fact, it was a long shot. Rajiv had told me when I applied, when I started work at Sangha, that they wouldn't give me a recommendation unless I worked for 2 years.
Okay.
And I wasn't really that keen to wait for 2 years to do my masters. And so right after the first year, I applied, and luckily I got it. So Rajiv was, I think, a bit disappointed that I was already leaving. MIT was, what can I say? I mean, it's great in hindsight to think about that experience, and it was actually overwhelming when I was there for the 2 years. I mean, it was just, you were bombarded with stuff.
Okay.
And professors at MIT would talk about the MIT experience as being at the fountainhead in a way, that sometimes, you just got blown away by the force of the things coming at you.
Okay.
And then it was only after maybe 5-10 years of having been through graduate school that things slowly start making sense. The stuff that you read, or the chance encounters that you had, or conversations. So MIT, while I was at school, was really overwhelming, and it was just being bombarded constantly with information, with deadlines. So it was great. I made some really good friends, and also made friends with some of the great professors on urban studies and history, who to this day are mentors to me. So that, in that sense, it was fantastic. But it was a tough 2 years.
Okay. So you did masters in urban design.
It's called Architecture Urbanism.
Okay.
So I mean, it's a very, very open program. You had just maybe around 9 credits or something to collect over 2 years.
Okay.
And so most of the courses were decided, in consultation with your advisor.
Right.
So you could choose from anywhere at MIT in any department. You could also cross-register at Harvard.
Oh,
And so just having that, huge amount of choice was also in some sense paralyzing. That you just looked at all of these courses on offer and you didn't know what the hell to do. So I had a wonderful advisor, a person called Julian Beinart, who also taught a great class on city form.
Okay.
And so with Julian's help, I was able to structure a meaningful 2 years at MIT.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there also was a lot of drafting and...
it was still, but by the time I was at
this
MIT...
was around 2002.
2003, yeah.
2003.
No, not 2003. I started at MIT in 1996.
Okay.
And I finished in 98.
Okay.
Computers were making their entrance at MIT. In fact, in my first year at MIT, I did a course on Photoshop and, rendering. Spending all that money and doing a course on Photoshop. But it was the new thing, and everybody was interested in modeling, and so we were doing, these. So I did a beautiful model of the Schroeder house as part of that class.
Okay.
It was still nascent. It wasn't, everybody wasn't yet using computers. So a lot of drawing by hand and model making again at MIT as well.
Alright, great.
Yeah.
And before I jump into how you got started, so in retrospect, like nowadays, most of us work with computers, right? In masters or in bachelors.
Right.
So in retrospect, when you since you work with a lot of drafting and sketching and all that, do you feel that has helped you as an architect and maybe refine the way you design?
I don't know any other way, and I don't know. So we have a lot of younger kids who come to the office now who work very differently from the way I work. And I don't see that as being a negative or that being lesser of a process by any stretch of the imagination. I think it's just that our brains are wired a little differently from the younger guys, and they're thinking about it and approaching the work, having that kind of understanding and sophisticated understanding of computers and processes, that they offer. Our ways are a little different and maybe a little slower and a bit more deliberate.
Okay.
And we're slower to come to conclusions because we aren't able to draw things to that level of detail, whereas the computer printout, even when things are half-baked, seem to look completely resolved.
Yeah.
And so it's this fiction of the printout, that wow, everything is fixed and actually maybe nothing is. Whereas when you're drawing by hand, till it isn't fixed, it shows that it's still a work in progress.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. So after you did masters, did you start off on your own, or did you also work?
No, I worked in the US. I worked with a great architect in Boston, a person called Fred Cotter. Fred Cotter and Colin Rowe wrote that amazing book called Art City, and he was the dean at Yale when I joined Fred's office. But in many ways, when I look back at our own practice, I see so much of Fred in everything that we do, in the way that we work, and in the way that, maybe even in the way that I talk, and he has had a profound influence on me.
Oh, great.
A wonderful teacher and a really, lovely person. He's no more, he passed away last year, but left a great legacy of wonderful practitioners in the US and everywhere. He was quite a well-known person. And then after that, after my time, and of course there was Susie as well, so his partner was Fred Cotter and Susie Kim, who ran that practice. And then after that, I went to New York and worked with Cooper Robertson.
Okay.
So that was Alex Cooper and Jacqueline Robertson, who ran predominantly, and they did these very high-end houses, but they also did a lot of urban design work. Working. So I did, worked on a plan for the city of New York, in Philadelphia, etc. So various sort of urban schemes as part of my.
I guess you must have pretty much settled in US that time, right? So why did you decide to come back to India?
So yes, we were very settled. We were enjoying a great life in New York City, living in Park Slope, and fantastic time. And then we have a baby.
Okay.
And that Anjali was born in 2002. And we said, it was getting, we always knew we'd come back at some point, and I think Anjali was, in a way, the catalyst for that to happen. It was getting very difficult because both of us were working and, just managing all of that. And so, Sunita and I decided that we'd come back and set up shop. So we'd come for a holiday in 2002, and we said, wow, things are really booming in India, and this is the time to strike. And so we came back in 2003. We were here, and in November we set up Hundredhands.
Great.
Yeah.
All right, so that's a really inspiring story, from US and then back to India. So where do you feel you got your first breakthrough and Hundredhands got to,
Yeah, we've been very, very fortunate because while I was in Cooper Robertson, we worked on an orphanage in Trichy.
Okay.
With an American donor, and the person who was giving the land was a family in Trichy. It was a very large campus for 500 children.
Okay.
Nothing came of it. We worked on it, and we reached a sort of master planning stage, and then the thing sort of fizzled out. And the moment I came back, we came back to India. Maybe a month or 2 months after we arrived in India, I get a call from Mark, our client in the US.
Okay.
And he said, where are you? So I said, we've come back, I'm in India. So he said, great, because we've got a project for you. And so just out of the blue, with almost no, not even having done anything, we get this opportunity to do our first architectural project. And it's completely, our good fortune that happened. Because it did two things. One is, the basic driving force of that project is really money. The orphanage was to be built on almost next to no money because there was very little to be had. And it was architectural project. So, you're talking about building right off the bat. So when you think of it in that sense, I always look at Hope project that we did, the orphanage, as the foundation for our practice in the sense of how one looks at the use of material, how frugally one is using resources. And so it's a great foundation for our practice, and we're fortunate to have had that right at the beginning.
Okay. And that's how you came up with the name as well, Hundredhands?
Hundredhands is, my brother Premjit gave us that name. It's basically because architecture is not the work of an individual. We depend, of course, on our wonderful colleagues, but also the clients and the contractors. And in India, that's even more heightened because everybody has an opinion, and it's very easy for people to do things at site. And so, we are depending on the collaboration of so many people to make something meaningful. So Hundredhands is notional, it stands for that.
Right. And what were the different challenges you faced starting off?
Well, what were the different challenges? I think that the biggest challenge for us was, we'd never built anything in India, and so working on an architecture project right off the bat, we struggled a little bit in just understanding the way things were made here, the processes by which things were done. Because it is, in some sense, it is quite rudimentary construction practice in India. Even today, we're doing things in a very, very sort of rudimentary way. Of course, that's a challenge, but it's also a fantastic opportunity because it means that a lot of the stuff is made by hand. It's all custom, and so in that lies a great opportunity to make really sort of bespoke things that you couldn't do anywhere else in the world. And so. Yeah, the challenge is also the opportunity of working in India. This kind of really ramshackle project site and completely handmade buildings means also that these things are very, very unique and can never be made anywhere else.
Yeah.
For better or for worse. Yeah.
So I'm a big fan of your work, and your architecture feels like there's a presence when you stand between those buildings. So what's your design process? How do you start?
We do three things. I think there are three simultaneous processes usually. First is, of course, understanding the brief. So just getting a sense of the program, getting a sense of the scale of things, getting a sense of the site, visiting that, so that you kind of understand what the conditions are. And then while doing the design itself, there's the process of drawing, so just sort of sketching out, getting a sense of the program, laying it out, and just making really rough drawings. But simultaneously also doing very, very quick three-dimensional studies in the computer and very quick, sketch models, which are just massing or just getting a sense of. So I think the core word probably is scale, just at the outset to understand what the scale of your endeavor is, what exactly are we trying to do.
Okay.
That's one thing. So there was this wonderful architect who come from Hyderabad, a person called Madhusudan. And he said something that, later on it sort of struck me, that on the one hand are these sort of physical responses, so the physical response to the site, the physical response to the program, just engaging with the commission itself. But then there's also a step maybe much before that. That is a continuous exercise that all architects are probably going through, which is an abstract question. And that's the question that Khan is asking early on, what's the nature of this commission? That isn't a response to a physical condition. It's if you will, a philosophical position. What is a school? Or what is a home? Or what is a, public space? I mean, these questions they're nebulous sort of ideas of things that then may end up in the project or may not, but you start also with that. So on the one hand is this kind of philosophical idea, and on the other hand is this very pragmatic response to the conditions that you're presented with. The first one is a bit difficult to describe. I mean, I think it's something that over the course of the career, you start maybe seeing things a little bit more clearly. One hopes. I haven't yet, but
okay.
You get to a point maybe where you start understanding what the core meanings are. All of us are searching for that. I mean, whether knowingly or unknowingly, we're all trying to understand that. The other stuff of response to site and climate and context and all that's the easy bit. And so Madhusudan's great exhibition at the BIC, where really all of his projects are trying to tackle that kind of really abstract notion of architecture. It was just fantastic.
And but what about the client coming in the middle and saying, keep your philosophy aside?
We don't tell them about that. I mean, it depends. We sort of test it out early on, and if they're game to have those conversations, yes. But otherwise, I think, this is the great lesson from Doshi, that actually the client is your partner, and you have to bring him into your circle, and that's your gift as a person who can negotiate, who can impress, who is really listening. These are the gifts that you have to possess as an architect, because without a client, we're not an artist. Khan used to say that Giotto, the great artist, used to draw the cannons with square wheels and paint the skies black. But as an architect, I can't do a cannon with square wheels. I have to make it work. It has to move, And so the client is essential to our work. And so to come into a room with a client, to have that in your mind that this guy is going to compromise my vision is, I think, a wrong way to approach it. I think really the client is the enabler, actually. And the quicker you're able to understand what he wants, really, and to impress upon him what is valuable to you, to have a real back and forth. It doesn't always work. I mean, you try every time, you're trying. But the best projects are the ones that are closest to my heart. For instance, the academic studio that we did, which is probably our smallest project, 1,600 square feet. A real coming together of client and architect. The client, it's basically musicians. I mean, he's riffing, I'm riffing. This back and forth was so fruitful that within 3-4 months we had a wonderful project. Just completely out of the blue. And then Neve and BIC are the other two examples of a great engagement with the client. Someone who's really on your side, trying to sort of really come into that conversation to further what it is we're trying to do. So without a client, I think there is there are great examples of projects without their clients, but I think the client, if you're able to have that conversation, brings up the level of the project many notches.
So my personal favorite of yours is the Alila. So that was, you did a collaboration with another architect.
Yes.
So could you tell us more about this project?
So just a little bit of background. So this is a project that was developed by my co-brother, as they say, my wife's sister's husband, who is Gautam Nambishan, who runs a company called UK Properties. And so they've come into possession of this wonderful site, 2 acres, around, I want to say it's around 50 feet, I don't remember now, but it's a very long site. It's narrow on the street and very deep. And in a way, the site is the threshold between the city and the hinterland, because at the back are all the farms, and in the front was this very busy one. And he came to us and said, would you guys be able to do this? And at that point, I was really not very sure, because it's very complicated, a mix of housing and hotel, etc. So I proposed to him that we try and find a foreign architect, maybe someone. So luckily, everything worked out, and we got Alila and Morrison involved, who we are the biggest fans of. I mean, everything that they do has this amazing, both nonchalance, but also an incredible simplicity and obviousness. That they are really looking at things and just trying to find the path of least resistance to get something lovely done. So they agreed. Their fees weren't astronomical, and so it all worked out. And so Graham, Bob, and Chris, Graham Morrison, Bob Alila, so Chris came to Bangalore, and we had them stay at West End. And just like great architects, they immediately caught on to what the essential quality of Bangalore is. Of course, the weather, but the idea of West End, where everything is open, everything is, you're always neither inside nor outside in this kind of in-between space, formed their core understanding of this place. And so Alila is really that diagram now in a contemporary fashion. A series of deep verandas and loggias from where you can look out and prospect onto the park, onto the setbacks. So it's also another great lesson for us from Graham Morrison, from Alila Morrison, that within the first, I think, month or so, they had already figured out the party of the scheme, the way the structure would be organized, the way the circulation would be organized, and the way the program was organized. So it's a really good, and there's a wonderful picture of a model that is on our website, which shows you that in that first month they had everything figured out. In terms of a party, the system that then will govern the way function and structure will work. They were exceptional, and just in terms of the clarity with which they worked. Of course, it was a long drawn-out procedure. It took us maybe 6 years to do, from design to completion, five years maybe. But every step of the way, Gautam was an incredible support. We did maybe 4 or 5 different room mock-ups, 1:1, to check all of the details and everything. Really, what a What a fantastic patron.
Even those balconies which are projected.
Yeah. And all that, so mock-ups. And we just did all kinds of stuff thanks to Gautam at that time. Boom time in Bangalore.
Okay.
And it has a great clarity even today. You walk into it, you understand the plan immediately. I mean, it's just this really rational. And yet, and really it is Alila Morrison's plan and rigor that a lot. Not to compare it with something that may be very difficult to compare, but like Bawa's work, it has this clarity of the plan and yet transcends that from being just a banal plan to being something of real great quality. I don't know how you achieve that. It's something that these days the masters know how to do.
Okay. You spoke about the importance of finding alternative ways to build, especially to address climate issues. So, how have you sort of implemented or maybe working towards it?
Well, that's a tough question. I haven't really made much, headway in that direction. We are now, in the past 2 years or so, we've now started working a lot with steel. Not that steel is any better than any other material, because its embodied energy is also very high, but at least it has the potential of life after.
Okay.
So at least that gives it a little bit more, more of an advantage over concrete. And so we've done the first one that we finished is a small office building where the whole south and east facades are covered with this very, very light steel sort of frame and timber. So there we tested out all the nut bolt joints, galvanizing, all of those tricks, and so just to understand it. And now we're working on a couple of projects, one for Go Native in Whitefield, which is predominantly a steel building with two masonry service cores. And then just in terms of scale, the largest one is the new building for the Indian Institute of Science, which is a composite structure. It's got a concrete core, but everything then around it is made in steel.
Okay.
I don't know if steel is really the future of the way that we want to do things, but at least it has that advantage of an afterlife. It's also quick to put together and all of the rest of it. But yeah, it's an important question, and I don't know what the answer is.
Okay. So your TEDx speech was pretty interesting, where you spoke about architecture, the senses, and all that.
Right.
But in terms of a larger scale, when you look at the city, right, and when you look at large-scale projects, how do we evoke such feelings in architecture? Because nowadays most of the architecture would be glass facades. So how do we evoke that sense of place of shadow or sense of memory and...
How do you evoke it? There are great examples of wonderful architects like Chipperfield, who continuously seems to be pulling these tricks out of the hat. His buildings again have that incredible quality of being absolutely obvious in terms of plan and organization, but they evoke all kinds of sensations when you're there through simple strategies of scale and proportion, organizing of structure. I don't think it's really. I don't want to say that it's simple, but I don't think we're having that conversation at all.
Okay.
And that's really the problem. That as architects, when we're working on our projects, otherwise it's difficult to explain the kind of crap that is being produced. Because I don't think those conversations are really being had in terms of all of these ambitions. The ambitions are limited to the ambitions of numbers or ambitions of cost or ambitions, those pragmatic responses that I was talking about earlier. I think our conversations are at that level. Even when we are evaluating our own work, we talk about climate and we talk about the material and cost and all of those things. They're all valid parts of the equation. But we've forgotten to talk about the other more, if you will, more philosophical or more abstract qualities that architecture needs to evoke. And we go to temples and we kind of feel it, but when we make our own buildings, somehow that isn't part of our equation at all. So I don't think it's necessarily something that is impossible to do, or that it's just that we're not having those conversations at all, or with our clients.
Yeah.
Yeah, Doshi had a lovely line in the first film, where at the end we're all standing in Sarkesh, Rosa, and Doshi says, if you bring a developer here, you think he won't like it, So of course, people, and that's essentially Doshi's thing, that you have to tap into the ambition that exists in all of our hearts. We are all aspiring to be better, to make ourselves better, to make the world better. Everybody, nobody wants to, unless you're, of course, completely corrupted. But everybody has an aspiration. Every client who comes in here is willing to go a little bit, with one step up,
Yeah.
But you have to bring that to bear, you have to show him Sarkesh, and say, isn't it lovely? And they say, oh, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Can we do a little bit of this, So I don't think we even have that conversation. And so then, you're just stuck having really banal.
Yeah, because example being the Bangalore metro stations and
Yeah, really unfortunate. Yeah, there's something amiss about just, and I don't think it's about architecture school. I think just generally in terms of how we talk about, like, I'm looking at my own kids, and they go to a school here, an international school, and after the 6th grade, they don't have art till their 10th standard. They don't have music. They don't have music ever after that. It's over, How can it be a well-rounded education if you're not exposed to music and art as part of your everyday? In fact, it's not your one subject in the week.
Yeah.
It's every day to engage with art, every day to engage with music, so that those give you sensations that architecture somehow has stopped giving you those sensations. Rahman's music moves you. Where's that architecture that's going to move you? You feel, wow, what a place. So that's why, every time that, young students come, interns come, we always try and arrange a visit to IIM Bangalore.
Okay.
Because a great contemporary work, and it lifts your spirit. You go in there, and every time I've taken the kids in there, they stop at that first pergola and they're like, my God, they've seen it in the photographs, they've seen it on the web, but being there is like, it just moves you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's a play between open and then closed.
So many things. The scale, the way the landscape has now taken things over, and then it evokes in you a memory of things that maybe you may not have personally experienced, but it's our collective memory as human. That's what Korea talked about when he talked about deep structure. Some places you go and everybody finds connection with it.
Yeah.
When we go to Rome and go to the Pantheon, it's not from our culture, but it still moves you, You're like, my God, what a place this is, And what is that connection that binds all of us, And how do you have that conversation? It's a really internal. Wittgenstein said that, that this work of an architect is the search for yourself, And when you say yourself, it is not you, but it's humanity, Our own deeper consciousness, as people. I'm sorry, I'm rambling, but
it's very interesting. Makes sense as well, right?
No, but some architecture does that. It brings you to a place where it surprises you, like, man, what an experience.
But then again, an architect like B.V. Doshi also had his lows, which was, for example, the diamond.
Yes.
Those projects.
So this idea of a collective project, that architecture isn't the sole creation of an individual. There's a fantastic TED talk by Elizabeth Gilbert, the person who wrote Eat, Pray, Love,
Okay.
And she says that, of course, you're going to have the terrible lows, you're going to have the incredible highs. And you have to realize that both those incredible lows and incredible highs aren't because of you, that you didn't deserve it through something that you did.
Mm-hmm.
It's some arithmetic that then has sort of come now to this point, and this is the sum of that arithmetic, karma, basically. And so the moment you remove yourself from the equation, you're light, you're not now, oh shit, I put in so much effort and we didn't win the competition. No, there's some other math that came and then this is what happened. Doshi explains the diamond rules exactly like that, saying that some karmic balance was there, I had to listen to those abuses, and now, it has been settled. Now I can move on and do other things, So yes, on the one hand, you're putting in the effort and showing up every day. On the other hand, the end result is sometimes out of your control.
Okay.
And especially architecture, where it's there are so many people involved. Clients, there's money, there's the contractors, consultants. Everybody has to contribute for it to become something.
Now technology is playing a big role, right, in the way we practice as architects. And so where do you see us architects go in the future, like with technology, changing the way it is changing?
Well, yes, recently we had a discussion about this with Naresh and Shomitro and Nisha and all that. And yeah, it's a good question. I think not only technology, but also just ecologically, I think so much of the way that we're doing, constructing or doing our buildings is completely irrelevant, will soon be completely irrelevant and just outright wrong. And I don't know the answer to your question, but I constantly am worried about the same old, and that we're doing a house now, we're doing this Indian Institute of Science building, and this question of how much are we going to consume to make this building is constantly playing on my mind. I don't have answers for it, but just trying to be frugal, trying to limit the amount of resources being used, etc. So technology on the one hand helps us immensely in making those calculations where earlier we couldn't do that, to really evaluate what it is you're doing in terms of resources. So we have, I forget the name of the website, but I'll point you to it. There's a wonderful World Bank supported website where you feed in, of course, the location and all of it, and then you give them all of the details of your building. And they're very, very elaborate sort of multiple choice tables. And it then calculates, based on your choices, what your carbon footprint is, how much you're going to consume, and what the impact of what you're doing is.
Okay.
It's a revelation because you don't think of it otherwise. And so we've been doing that exercise, just consciously changing parameters to see what then it means, over the course of this construction. So you're right to ask the question. It's a serious issue, and I haven't yet seen, where the road leads.
And I'm sure you're aware of building information modeling.
Yes.
It's slowly taking up the AEC industry.
Yes.
So, do you think it would be implemented in offices such as yours and maybe the other few firms in India?
For sure. I think we're behind the curve with regards to that. Again, another great way in which to monitor what you're doing then is because it's kind of a database at the heart of it. And so these choices, then you see the results of these choices immediately. We haven't done it yet, and in fact for the Indian Institute of Science, there was talk originally, right at the beginning when we started, to make all of our drawings with BIM, but because they at IIC didn't have BIM, and then consultants also just sort of getting into it, we decided against it. We have to get on to that. Yes.
All right. And back in 2009, there was this video which you did with your brother where you interviewed a lot of architects in Bangalore. So you asked them about the state of architectural education, and most of them replied that it was a very dismal state. So do you still feel that it's still in a dismal state in India, or it's been changed a bit?
Just a correction. That film in 2009, my brother wasn't involved.
Okay.
And it's a really tough movie to watch because of that. It isn't really a film. It could make a good book or something. But to answer your question about education, I don't think things have changed. Things have deteriorated, and that's because of this push. The Council of Architecture has been on this sort of incredible rush to make 500 schools of architecture in India. So there have been a lot of schools that have been given permissions to start without any idea of how you're going to find teachers to teach the subjects. And architecture, unlike engineering, or maybe engineering is also not easy to teach. But architecture is, like we were discussing, it's got all of these abstract and strange conditions. So how do you teach it? How do you get someone interested in it? How do you get them to pursue things? Because it is like teaching art. It is to some extent. Of course, it has its technical aspects as well. But you have to get someone excited about it to push them over that edge, and then now they're on their own.
Yeah.
That's the only thing a teacher can do, and then you go out there, you find your own way, as an architect. But with I don't know how many we have, 26 colleges in Bangalore alone. I mean, where are those teachers? I mean, there are 80 kids in every batch.
Yeah.
Who's teaching them? I mean, so it is overwhelming just to think about it. And then now, of course, you probably are aware that we get so many interns applying for jobs. It breaks my heart to imagine that, a lot of them probably get into, offices that, are just not really doing much and, struggling away to find jobs, etc. So it's not a good time.
And it's put in more work for you to screen and find the best.
We are not very thorough with it. I was talking to, these guys from Brio, Robert and Shefali, and they were saying that, they had made all of these thresholds. So if it was blind copied or it was mass copied, then the guy is cancelled. If it's not addressed to Robert or Shefali, it's cancelled. If it isn't, a specific mail that tells you about the practice and why you're applying the practice, cancelled. So then you whittle down a little bit.
I think you spilled the beans right now.
Yeah, so, but it's tough. I mean, even in spite of all that, he was saying they still, I have at least, 15 resumes every day during the training season.
Wow.
And so how do you even go through and give everybody their fair share? Because everybody's spending a lot of time on their portfolios. And it's a tough being a student is not easy, and you're also bombarded with so much information that it's really confusing time as an architect. As a young architect who's coming out, the ways are not clear. I mean, they weren't clear earlier, but it's become even foggier now. Where do I go? What do I do?
And you're also involved in a lot of juries and...
I teach, actually. I go twice a week to BMS.
Okay.
I'm part of the master's program.
Okay.
I am involved in college, and now, I've just recently been appointed on, I'm part of the Board of Studies for the Vishweshwarya Technical University, which is the biggest university in Karnataka. We've just started our term as part of the BOS, and so hopefully, we'll get a chance to take a look at the syllabus, and that's the other thing. I mean, when we went to college, we were in the yearly scheme. So we had 1 year, and basically 4 months of that year we didn't do much. NASA primarily, and then the next 4 months or whatever we spent, trying to finish our coursework. Whereas now I think it's overwhelming, the amount of stuff you have to complete in a semester. It's just you have no time to do anything else.
Right. Yeah. And coming back to architecture, when we talk about constraints, right? In India, there's something called Vastu, which is sort of a constraint.
Yeah.
So, do you feel that it's sort of a constraint, or because I'm sure it will be part of most of your residences? And
we've not done too many residences. I think we've done 3 houses in 16 years.
Okay.
And in none of those 3 houses was Vastu a constraint.
Right.
So I haven't had great experience with Vastu. Look, I mean, it's something that is difficult to argue with the client about, and I mean, I look at stuff that Mohib produces, these great housing projects where also some Vastu has been applied, and so there is a way around it. I mean, if you're clever and there are ways to do it. We don't have much experience with it. We do a lot of institutional work, and in that it's very rare that it comes into the picture.
Right.
Entrance in the east, maybe max.
All right. So we'll just quickly go into the quickfire round.
Okay.
And I'll ask you some bunch of questions.
Okay.
So which book has probably inspired you the most?
I'd say Thinking Hand and Eyes of the Skin. Both Palasma's books.
Okay.
These important books for. I would say that if you can read, if an architect can read it, it's quite inspiring and opens.
Okay.
That lecture, the TEDx lecture, is a complete sort of rip-off of Palasma's Eyes of the Skin. So those 2 books, I'd say.
who's your favorite artist in music?
Well, it's a cliche, but I love the Beatles. I love Bob Dylan. Who else? I've recently got on to Billie Eilish, and she's fantastic.
Okay.
Yeah, my daughter is my great source of information.
Okay.
What's new? Yeah.
So you stayed in a couple of cities, right? So which city would you consider your favorite?
I like Bangalore, but I really enjoyed living in Boston.
Okay.
It was it's a great city, and also because of the friends, I guess, and Fred.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So what's your favorite moment throughout any day or?
What's my favorite moment? I don't know. I like mornings. Mornings are good in the office. Early in the morning, usually very productive. It's quiet, so that I enjoy. And I enjoy getting back home in the evening.
Traffic?
No, getting back, like reaching
Okay.
after the traffic. When the kids and our cat and Sunny, just hanging out at home towards the end of the day is always very relaxing.
What is the daily routine in Bijoy Ramachandran's life look like?
Daily routine. We wake up at 5:55, pack the kids off to school, make breakfast, and Sunny and I have a routine in the morning, and then some days I go back to sleep, which are fantastic. Another hour or so of sleep, and then I'm at the office usually by around maybe 9:30 or 10, not very early. Quite uneventful. Lunch, we have lunch on 3 days a week, and the other days I usually go either to Only Place or to Egg Factory. I usually have a book, and so take some time like that. Afternoons. On Wednesdays, so Wednesdays are the fun days in the office. We usually have something or the other on Wednesday, movies, training.
Oh, nice.
So in fact, tomorrow we can't have it. So today we have our interns introducing themselves.
Okay.
The new interns. You're welcome to stay if you have the time. So we have 4 new interns presenting, and one of our old interns is talking about a book by Simon on metaphors.
So you play like a key role in mentoring most of your architects interns.
Yeah. So our office is, I wouldn't use the word mentoring.
Like how you had a mentor in the US, right?
Yeah, but I'm not like Fred at all. I wish I were.
Okay.
Our office is very, very sort of open structured. So I don't sit with anybody or guide them or mentor them, tell them what to do, etc. Some of them take the initiative and they get more out of their time here than others.
Right.
So it's really up to the individual. The office has a fairly good collection of books, and there's these events on Wednesdays. So hopefully some of that rubs off, and they get something out of it, out of their own initiative, not because I push them to.
Okay. And you also have a lot of senior architects or
not too many. We have, I would say, maybe 2 seniorish architects who've been here maybe for 2 years, 2-3 years. We don't have anybody older than that.
Yeah, I think the lifespan also is getting less, right? So how long?
No, it's a roadblock that practices like ours. I don't know how others are doing it, but a lot of my friends, you run into a wall after a certain point in time because it's a lot more lucrative for people to start up on their own.
Yeah.
And in India, it's easy to do that, and so we lose a lot of people to their own practices or to master's degrees abroad. So they disappear after 2 years.
Okay. So what's your take on people starting off as soon as they graduate college? I mean, there's hardly any experience in that, right? But still they just start off.
Well, it's tough to generalize. I couldn't do that myself. I was a bit diffident about it, and I thought I need to work a lot before I started. There are some kids who are incredibly prescient, and they're precocious. Not prescient, but they're precocious, and they understand things, and they're able to do it quickly. It's also, I don't know, sometimes opportunity comes your way that you can't refuse. So someone, we had a wonderful architect here for a year, and she had to go away because she got this great job in in Bombay, and I don't know what came of it, but there was this opportunity that then was tailor-made for her to start practice. So sometimes, there are many factors that affect how these things pan out. We would like for them to stay forever, but that hasn't happened. The longest I think someone stayed here is maybe 7 years.
Okay.
He just recently left, broke our heart, but it's inevitable.
Alright.
That's the way it works. We all left offices to start our own practice.
Yeah. Alright. So I know you can't give a brief answer to this, but since you've been in Bangalore for quite some time, so how do you solve the Bangalore traffic problem?
Yes, I have a one-line answer to that. You can't. How do you? I don't know. Because I don't know, the precedents are not simple. For instance, in London now, things are a lot better in the city, just because there are fewer cars coming in. In fact, the great example that one gives is the Shard, which has, I think, all of 15 car parking spots.
Okay.
The whole building. And the rationale is that they're basically dissuading you from coming into the city with a car. There's a tax that you pay if you come into the city, so there's a congestion tax. But then, if you're going to do all of that, which is to prevent people from driving into the city, you also then have to have a really sophisticated public transport system, buses and trains. We are on our way there. It's not bad now. The metro works pretty well and the buses.
But do you feel that once the metro is in full swing, that
no, it won't solve the problem unless you do other clever things like what they've done in London. That you figure out a way to tax people to come in. You make it difficult for people to drive into the city. Parking is exorbitantly expensive in New York and in London.
Okay.
So these dissuade people from coming in, and then you have some way to manage it. But if you look at Malaysia, cities in Malaysia and Thailand, where they do have great public transport systems, you can't move in that traffic. You're stuck in traffic jams the whole time you're there. So I don't know if they're not doing these other things, or maybe their cities aren't structured to make that possible. I don't know the answer. I'm rambling, but London may be a good precedent, but even that may not work here. I don't know.
But do you personally take the metro?
No, I don't. Yeah, thanks. Thanks for that question. I should. In fact, we had an intern here, a very bright intern from SPA. She was here all of 3 days. And she realized that I lived in Indira and I worked here. And she asked me point blank, why don't you take the metro? I don't have an answer to that. So maybe I should. Yeah, I will.
Okay, great.
My New Year resolution. Yeah.
Alright. So what are some of the plans for yourself and Hundredhands going forward? Future plans or?
I'm not a big one for planning, but I'll tell you what's coming up for us. And there are a couple of really interesting. There's a wonderful exhibition that we've been invited to be part of with Aniket Bhagwat. And it's an exhibition on architecture for which we haven't really thought through what we want to do yet. But it is going to be some sort of a site-specific exercise here in Bangalore, and so that's a nice charge from Aniket to do something. And then we are also just recently. There was a big meeting with all the architects. The mayor had called for a meeting.
Okay.
Unfortunately, the mayor's term lasts only another 8 months, and so I don't know what groundbreaking stuff we're going to produce in 8 months. But nonetheless, it's a good
initiative.
Yeah, it's something that may help us focus a little bit and maybe come up with something. So these two exercises, which are not related to our architecture day-to-day work, are exciting, interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
And you also take part in a lot of competitions, right? So
yes.
Are you still taking part, or maybe?
We haven't done one in a while. I think the Indian Institute of Science, which is a year ago, was the last one that we did.
Okay.
There has been a call for a competition for a university in Chennai, which we put in our qualifications and we're waiting to hear. But yeah, we are really keen on competitions. We've become more and more suspicious and a bit cynical about competitions because of all the news that you've heard of the War Museum, the Delhi Museum, and Sami rightfully won and was cheated out of it. And that fiasco in Amaravati, which serves them right, now looks like it's not going to happen at all.
Yeah.
So there is, and our British friends, whom we did the Nalanda University with, which also, we were very, very disappointed to lose, but nonetheless, you lose some, you win some, you lose some. But the English architects are just not interested in participating in competitions in India anymore because they think that, things are a bit, everything's not very straightforward.
It also takes a toll on you, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of effort. But I think even in spite of all of that, in spite of all of these corruptions that exist, I think doing a competition is still a fantastic thing to do. It's like, I don't know, limbering up for the big race, where you're just putting in, the effort, doing something really quick. It's like real exercise, like hardcore exercise, and then you're ready for the real show. So I think that whatever month or 2 months that you spend on competitions, it crystallizes your ideas. It forces you to crystallize onto something. It forces you to be efficient about the way you work. There are many lessons to be had from that. It's worth doing, even if everything else.
You won a couple of them.
We won 2. We've participated in many. So we won the Bangalore International Center competition in 2012, which took us 7 years to complete. And we won the Indian Institute of Science Award competition last year. And hopefully in the next month or so, we'll tender out and start construction on that. So that's been a bit, I don't want to jinx it, but it's been a bit easier than the Bangalore International Center competition.
All right. So coming to a close, what advice would you give to young students and architects coming up?
Oh, advice is a strong word. I would suggest that architects, young students, in spite of their incredibly demanding curriculum and stuff like that, find time to escape from college and travel as much as possible in the time that you have in school. Travel with friends so that you all see whatever it is you're seeing differently and exchange your ideas about what you see. Draw as much as you can when you travel. Yeah, I think for us as students when we were young, travel was really what made us the way we were. And there are so many from our group, who've done reasonably well. From the Paradigm guys, Sandeep and Manoj. Nagaraj Vastare, Amresh from Khosla Associates. There are so many architects who've done wonderfully, and I'd like to think that it is because of that ecosystem and because we all did, these things. We traveled, we went to Ahmedabad, spent a lot of time talking about things with each other. I think travel is the essential key thing.
Yeah, I think you're the first person to give this
really?
Travel. Yeah, so far, it's pretty cool.
Well, yeah, it's what made the difference for me. Drawing and traveling.
Great. All right, sir. Thanks for coming on to the show. It was a pleasure to have you on the show, and we got to learn, especially me. I personally learned quite a few things talking to you. So thanks, and hopefully in the future as well, we would have you on the Archgyan show.
Thanks. Delighted to be here, and you have a really easy, wonderful air about you, so it's easy to have a chat. So thanks.
Thanks for that compliment.
You've been listening to the Archgyan podcast. We're still building the community. Please share this knowledge with someone you know who could benefit. Just send them to archgyan.com, where you'll find our free newsletter and for more podcast episodes. Search for the show on any major podcasting platform. Don't forget to subscribe where you're listening right now. And if you liked it, leave a rating or review.